Hello, and welcome to the Holistic Fitness Podcast, where you'll learn how to get your goals without burning out. I'm your host, LORILEE, and this show isn't just about movement and nutrition. You probably already know that exercise and nutrition is important for your mental and physical health and well-being. It's also about stress management, mindset, shedding those limiting beliefs, and working through some of that childhood trauma while you're at it. Today, I'm joined by Ana Herrera. Ana suffered from stage 4 endometriosis for years and went through excruciating PMS pain, infertility, and 5 surgeries, the last one ending in a full hysterectomy and a colon resection, which led to surgical menopause. Ana's painful experience inspired her to help others struggling with hormonal imbalances and avoid suffering in silence as she did. Knowing that there's a lot to be done in order to make the right health choices, she started Hormone University to educate, support, and empower women to achieve better hormonal health and lead a happy life. Today, we spoke about endocrine disruptors in our food and homes, why women should be learning more about hormones, and what you can do if you're suffering from a hormonal imbalance. I'm super excited to share all of the great tips that Ana provided in this episode with you all. Hey goal-getters, just chiming in quickly to say that if you like this podcast or found any sort of value while listening, I would love it if you could help me out and give this a quick rating or review wherever you listen to the Holistic Fitness Podcast. 5-star reviews help this podcast get in front of other listeners who could benefit from the actionable tips and insights shared. If you want to help get the message of balanced fitness and helping others get their goals without burning out, please take 5 seconds to give this podcast a 5-star review. Keep shining. How are you going today, Ana?
Hi, Lori. So nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. Everything is going well. Very, very cold day in New York, but it's fine.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, and it got to like 30 degrees over the weekend, and it's been like in the 50 degrees, and I just couldn't deal. So I can't imagine what it's like being up in the Northeast.
Yes.
I'm really, really excited to have you on the podcast, Ana, because I speak a lot about stress management, getting that 8 hours worth of sleep. And, you know, a lot of the things driving your habits are your stress management and your hormones. But, you know, I don't have the endocrinology education or anything like that. And, you know, you're in the weeds of hormones like every single day. I feel like whenever somebody embarks on a journey where they're helping someone in a very specific way, it's because there's some sort of backstory. So can you tell myself and the audience a little bit more about your backstory that got you here to want to help people in the way that you help people today?
Absolutely, Lori. Yes, indeed. So that's effectively what happened. I went through a very long struggle with endometriosis stage 4, which for your audience, there is a conservative stat that 10% of women suffer from endometriosis. But I actually believe from talking to experts that it's between 10 and 15% of the adult female population. So if we think about it, it's a very, very high percentage. And it's a real struggle of managing physical pain every time you have your period. And in my case, it was 2 weeks out of the month that I was struggling with excruciating pain. I had to go through 5 surgeries. And it was very tough. I also went through infertility, and it's something that I often say, I made the mistake of being very silent about it. And now I'm almost the opposite. Like, I want to really amplify this awareness, not just about endometriosis, but about hormone health. And that is the reason why I started our educational platform, Hormone University, and also launched Glow, which is Glow Botanica, which is plant-based products scientifically tested with 4 studies that help with hormonal balance.
I'm so glad that you're able to educate people in that way. And I'm so sorry to hear that you went through stage 4 endometriosis. If I'm being quite honest, like I'm a little bit ignorant when it comes to endometriosis. Personally, I've never had super painful periods. I've never had like heavy periods to the point that I'm allowed like the 10-year copper IUD. Like I'm quite privileged in that way. So can you tell me more about like some symptoms of endometriosis, what that might look like, and, you know, if you said it was 10% conservative. So for those who maybe haven't been tested yet, like, what does that look like?
Yes. So endometriosis is a condition that still needs a lot of research. It's when the lining of the uterus infiltrates a different organ. So in my case, it was infiltrated all over the place: ovaries, fallopian tubes, and also my colon. It can actually infiltrate even your eyes, your skin, your lungs. It's a very difficult condition that, like I said, needs so much research. So it's extremely painful, as I mentioned, and it shows in the form of very heavy periods, really excruciating pain, painful sex for some people as well, and just, you know, very hard to cope with your life on an everyday basis. It kind of acts like cancer because it infiltrates other organs, but of course it's not cancer. So, I mean, I was one of those very, very lucky ones that got the diagnosis pretty much at the beginning of that journey. And the sad factor here is that it takes an average of 7 to 10 years for someone to get diagnosed, because we are being dismissed by some doctors or medical professionals that, oh, you know, you just have a bad period, or, oh, this is normal. But actually, it's not normal. If you're suffering from really terrible pain, you have got to insist. And again, I go back to Hormone University because that was kind of like the genesis and the reason why I want women to understand more about hormonal health. I want women to go to the doctor prepared with the right questions. And then if we add other things like different conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is also a really difficult condition, again, 10% of the female population. And then, of course, you think about infertility, and that's 1 in 4 couples in the US. So you start adding up, and hormonal health has become a health crisis. So, and it's not just linked to reproduction. Hormone health really govern us in so many different ways. And I love hormones. There are some wonderful hormones that make us very, very powerful. But it's not just based on reproduction. It's based on so many different factors: your sleep, your metabolism. It regulates so many different things. So it's really important to everyone listening to this. Please read as much as you can and arm yourself with tools so that if ever someone tells you that is, you know, it's just pain or whatever it is, you can say, well, you know what? I don't think this is normal, and really advocate for yourself.
I love that, the work that you're doing, because I think it's so important that we advocate for ourselves in a medical professional, but in a medical kind of environment. But I think it's really hard when you're in a doctor's office and the doctor kind of like dismisses what you're feeling and dismisses it. And especially as a woman, why do you think we need Hormone University? Why do you think that we need to educate ourselves? Why, when it comes to endocrinology, like I studied biomedical science at university, like it is like a full-on health like pillar. Why are we being dismissed at doctors' offices about PCOS, about endometriosis?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of several factors. One of them is time. And doctors have a very short period of time when you go see them, right? So going back to your question as to why was Hormone University created, is in that short period of time when you're going to see the doctor. In fact, our newsletter is called The Waiting Room for a big, you know, that's an important reason, because I went through such hell. And I was fortunate that I was diagnosed early, but I did, as I was living in London for a long time, I had to deal with different doctors, and not every doctor is A, has the time, or B, even has the knowledge, the deep knowledge that you might need for whatever condition you have. So it is crucial that we just arm ourselves with the tools that we need, and that's knowledge. I often say wellness starts with knowledge. So So it is a mix of things. In the US, I mean, I'm European, as I mentioned, and we're lucky to have free health access. And that's not the case in the US predominantly. And so it is, it really saddens me. And if you go deeper into this about certain populations that get even more ignored, I mean, it's just something that I feel very strongly and passionate about, that as women, we have to help each other. We have to support each other and just, study and research and do make sure that you have all the knowledge possible so that you can really ask those questions and you don't find yourself in a situation where you're not being heard.
For sure. I totally agree with that. How do you not get overwhelmed with all of the knowledge? Because there's a lot of knowledge out there and you can very quickly get on a TikTok algorithm that tells you everything that's wrong with you. So when you were in your discovery phase, how did you kind of like drill down on your personal experience?
Love that question, Lori. Love it. Because again, when I started thinking about creating Hormone University and I had gone myself through all that research, what I discovered is that there is a lot of information out there and it's either too simple or too scientific. So the goal that we had was, okay, let's find the most scientific, the most well-researched information and break it down into kind of easy, digestible pieces of information so that anyone can read it and anyone can understand it and not go like, oh, wait a minute, what does that mean? Right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, of course, because hormone health is so broad and it really covers so many different aspects of our health. You kind of have to go, okay, if I'm feeling tired, if I feel depressed, if I feel that I'm bloated all the time, or I have weight gain for no reason, or I have heavy periods, or I have no periods at all, then most likely you're going to have a hormone-related condition. So just again, our philosophy is it's not about age, it's about symptoms. So really check your symptoms. We have created a very, very thorough symptom checker that you can go on our website. You can do it. It's been approved by one of the top OBGYNs in the US. She's incredible, Dr. Elizabeth Poynter. And she treats women in a holistic way. It's not just kind of like the classic medicine or traditional medicine. She's more holistic. So we prepared that so that people can focus on what symptoms they have. And that way you can do your own research.
I love that, Ana. And it's so important to dive into the symptoms first, but generally there's some sort of root cause behind the symptoms. And I guess the root cause that you're digging into from those symptoms are like the specific hormones that people are maybe out of balance with.
That's exactly right, Lori. And again, going back to the time that we have with doctors, they, unfortunately, there is this thing about the shortcut. Okay, what can I prescribe very quickly so that your symptoms are basically masked? And I completely, it's music to my ears, what you just said, Lori, because going to the root cause is key, is really key. And it might just be that your progesterone levels are really low, right? Or you have a hormone that is completely up or down, or your cortisol levels, right? We're all, the stress that we live every day is just insane. So it might be that you have that anxiety because your cortisol levels are completely all over the place. So we are very keen to tell women that they should be testing their hormones, and they should do that relatively often. Of course, it depends on your situation. In my case, I have started testing my hormones like around every 8 months or so. And it gives me a really good overview of what's going on. And I know when I get the results, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? So yeah, that's really, really important.
Oh, I agree with you in that we should be testing hormones. And I love that you raise that. I have never tested my hormones and I really want to. And it's funny because I speak a lot about that cortisol balance, the cortisol and melatonin balance. And, you know, we talk about PCOS quite a bit in terms of your metabolism, but I haven't tested my hormones because I wouldn't know what to do with the results. So knowing from a traditional medical system that things are often band-aided, and I'm a little bit more holistic in that I want a doctor doing surgery on me. I would need antibiotics every now and again. I've got nothing against our medical system, but equally I do think it should be holistic. And, you know, when you get those results, it's like, hey, well, maybe you should be eating more foods that are like this, or maybe you should be reducing your light, or like, that's how I would want to use it. For someone that's like in the traditional medical system, similar to me, like what advice would you give them?
Yeah. So let's start with what type of tests, right? You have the classic blood test, which is really good for certain hormones. I personally, I don't want to advertise anything here. I've got zero affiliation to any of these companies, but I really, really find there are two companies that I have found very helpful. One is Feminate, and you can do the hormone testing with them, and it's a urine test, and it's very complete. And then they give you the service of getting a naturopathic doctor to, let's call it, translate those results for you and tell you what you have to do in your everyday life. And the other company is called the Dutch test. And the Dutch test, as in DUTCH, I think it means something like dried urine test something. And they also have a very, very comprehensive testing methodology with urine. And I use another company for my own functional medicine. And so my functional doctor orders that test for me, and then she basically gives me the results, and then she prescribes, okay, you need this supplement, or you need to change this habit, and you're drinking too much coffee, or whatever it is, right? I'm simplifying it, but it's that's how I've been doing it, and it's made a big difference, really, really big difference in my life. Of course, along with our products, which I'm dying to tell you about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to get to those as well. I think first I do want to talk more about the symptoms. So you mentioned, just because a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, they want to get their goals without burning out. So they're either burning themselves out and in a good place, maybe externally when it comes to weight loss, or they're at a place where they maybe had PCOS. Like I get a lot of comments on my TikToks of like, well, how do I lose weight if I've got PCOS? I feel like I am exercising so hard, I'm eating so well, but I just still can't shift the weight. Can you explain more how weight loss intertwines with hormones?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very complex subject. And look, again, going back to the subject of root cause, my first port of call would be to really get those hormones tested, see what's off, and adjust. So you first need to identify. Without identifying, no matter what you do, it's almost like when you are so stressed with something that's going on in your life, no matter how well you eat, it's going to have an effect on you, right? You're smiling, and it completely shifts the way you feel and the way your body operates. So your point before, Lori, about getting to the root cause is just the first action that you need to take. And so without that identification of what's going on, what's off, it might be a thyroid issue. It might be those hormones linked to PCOS. It might be so many different things, progesterone, estrogen. I mean, it's just such a complex overview of what can go on. So I would say first step, identify. Second step, go to your doctor, go to your coach, health coach, and really try and see what information you can get from them based on those results, and then take action. So I feel that as a society, we first take action and we don't go into the root cause. So it has to be the other way around.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really similar to the way we do holistic fitness as well. It's a pyramid, and the base of the pyramid is stress management, and then it goes habit building. Then it's eating well, then it's moving often, then it's supplementation, but with an asterisk. And I'll get to that shortly. But stress management really is endocrinology. It's like, I talk a lot about that cortisol and melatonin balance. And, you know, your cortisol is going to be super high if you're not sleeping at night, if you're burning yourself out, if you're not doing that thought work and all of that sort of stuff. So I think getting your hormones tested, you know, if you've tried all of the lifestyle things and you're still exhausted, you're still not noticing a difference no matter how well you eat, it's like, I actually agree with you in that. Like, we have to build this awareness with our body. I like, you've sold me. I want to do a hormone test now, because like, my thing, I burn myself out. That's why I teach this, because I just get so excited and want to do all the things. So yeah, it would be really cool to do that. But then you also, like, supplementation, I guess, is probably a little bit lower down on the period for you. Or I'm not against supplementing. Like, I'm a vegetarian. So I know that I need to supplement with B12, because I'm just not going to get B12 from vegetables and legumes. And I also know that I need to keep an eye on my iron. And I also know that working from inside, vitamin D is also important. So that's why I have the asterisks there with supplementation. I would like to know more about, like, Glow Botanicals and, like, why supplementation can be important and if it's required, like, throughout the entire journey.
Right. Yes. I do want to mention something else, and that is a different type of testing. One of the things that we can talk about is endocrine disruptors, and we are also really exposed with other things like heavy metals. And for those people who love fish and they're constantly, or maybe not constantly, but have a diet with fish, meat, we are unfortunately in a situation whereby we are exposed to these heavy metals. And one of the tests that I want to mention too is hair mineral testing. I personally recently discovered that I am high on mercury, really high levels of mercury. So I would say to everyone, also test metals. You can do it with hair. So it's a hair mineral test. And there are also blood tests. So that's just something that I wanted to add. Supplementation. Look, I think that I agree with you, Lori. There are several points here. One is our gut, our microbiome has an incredible population of wonderful bacteria that is great for you. And again, it might be that you have some sort of imbalance, right? So in our case, for Glow Botanica, we decided to do topical creams rather than supplementation.
Right.
And it doesn't mean we won't do supplementation in the future, but one of the things that we discussed in depth with our advisors and our doctor is that there is, I think, I want to be careful how I say this, but from the data that we have, there is an average of women, especially, take an average of 10 supplements a day.
That's crazy.
That is crazy, right? So our gut is kind of going through a bit of a crisis, right? And I wanted to create a brand that would really protect our gut. So we decided to launch topical supplements. So it's a transdermal effect, and it goes straight into your bloodstream, and therefore it doesn't mess with your gut. So those nutrients, those ingredients that we have that are absolutely wonderful, are going straight into your system without interfering with your gut microbiome. So I guess that's the main differentiation that we have, which has been great on the one hand and also kind of tough for us because we have to educate people that this is a very different way of helping your hormonal symptoms and your hormonal balance. But we've got 4 amazing studies and thousands of women that are swearing by our products. So really, really happy and excited to continue doing this.
Hey, Holistic Fitness fam, a quick message from one of our sponsors, Ned. As you all know, I recommend good nutrition, movement, and stress management practices before supplementing, so you know what type of supplementation that your body actually needs. For me, I supplement with very few products, but Ned is one of them. I'm a type A, high-energy, ambitious business girly with massive goals. And sometimes I honestly just need to chill out and relax a bit. I've found that both Ned's de-stress and sleep blends fit in with my busy lifestyle and ambitious goals, but I was honestly not a big fan of CBD products before trying Ned, mostly because of the culture surrounding weed. I just didn't want something that was going to alter my state of mind so that I became much less of a goal-getter or less ambitious. That was until I learned about full-spectrum hemp and their benefits. Ned blends are chock full of premium CBD and a full spectrum hemp of active cannabinoids. Ned's full spectrum hemp oil nourishes the body's endocannabinoid system to offer functional support for stress, sleep, inflammation, and balance. These products are science-backed, nature-based solutions that offer an alternative to prescription and over-the-counter drugs. All of Ned's full spectrum hemp oil is extracted from USDA certified organic hemp plants grown by an independent farmer named Jonathan in Colorado. I'm obviously a big fan, but don't take just my word for it. Ned CBD products have over 2,000 5-star reviews, and they work with incredible partners in the medical field like Dr. Caroline Leaf, Dr. Christian Gonzalez, and Dr. Will Cole. Ned is providing Holistic Fitness podcast listeners a very special discount. If you'd like to give Ned a try, listeners get 15% off Ned products with the code LORILEE, LORILEE. Thanks, Ned, for sponsoring the show and offering a natural remedy to bring balance to so many people's well-being. So one of the things we learned in biomedical science is your skin takes on so much. And what we're putting on our skin, whether it's our body wash or whether it's our skincare, it can have a really big effect on things. And I do think, I can imagine some people having some sort of aversion to that because it's not the way we typically ingest things for our gut. So can you share a little bit more about why skincare, or skincare is not the word, but why, topical treatments are so effective?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, effectively, our skin is our largest organ and it breathes, right? Yeah. And so I will give you just one concrete example so that people can understand. We have a product that is a very rich magnesium body lotion, which also has collagen and evening primrose oil. And we found that actually magnesium gets much better absorption through the pores of your skin. So there are studies out there that show that if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Because you're taking a supplement, it goes through all the gastric fluids in your stomach, and then it has to go through your gut, and so it goes through different processes inside your body. Whereas when you put it on your skin, it absorbs. So it was fascinating to do that, to find out through those incredible studies that effectively magnesium, which is such a wonderful mineral, actually gets absorbed much better through your skin. And there are a lot of people that cannot take oral supplementation with magnesium. And most of the population are magnesium deficient, and our vitamin D doesn't work without magnesium. And so there are so many different great benefits of transdermal, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. You've sold me. Honestly, after this, I want to get my hormones tested, and then I want to do a YouTube video just testing this for 8 weeks. Being okay, I'm low in this. I'm going to do these topical creams. Let's see how the topical creams go. Even though definitely supplementation is is one of those things that I feel like eating well and moving well is more important. But a lot of people are already trying this and they're wondering what that missing link is. And sometimes even I took antidepressants when I was 20 and I don't regret it. I said, antidepressants helped me get from a 1 out of 10 to a 3 out of 10. So I could do the things that I knew I should have been doing anyway, like moving more often, like eating well. When you're depressed, you don't even want to get out of bed. So I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that need that thing to get them from the 1 out of 10 to the 3 out of 10, the 4 out of 10, so that they can do the things they already know that they, in air quotes, should be doing.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, Lori, to hear that you went through that. And I have friends that have gone through that. And, you know, for me personally, in some extent, I really went through such a horrible period for years with endometriosis because you just don't know what to do with that extreme pain. And it affects your mental health massively. And you can't move either because the pain is so bad. So I completely agree. And I'm all about whatever works for you, right? And if you're in a bad situation like that, absolutely do whatever it takes. Just think about the long-term consequences and of course think about how you can get to that root cause. And it might just be that, again, like you've got really low serotonin levels, or your oxytocin is like non-existent, or, you know, so all those happy hormones, you might have some sort of imbalance. And I really, my message is, of course, do whatever it takes. Absolutely.
On that, you've just piqued my curiosity there. On that, like oxytocin and serotonin, I'm thinking about dopamine right now as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really curious, like in your line of work with Hormone University, what lifestyle changes do you find help people the most when it comes to producing more happy hormones?
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote an email. I write these Sunday emails I mentioned, all about oxytocin, in fact, because one of the things that it's really linked actually to your mood, of course, and it's the love hormone, right? So in that email, I wrote all the little things that we can do on a daily basis to help us. And we do find, and women tell us from all around the world, that all these different content pieces that we have are helping them in different ways, depending on what's happening in their lives. And I do want to say, we have to also be very grateful that we live in a country where we have free access to information. Think about women in Iran, think about women in other countries, in the Middle East, in many different cultures, and where society dictates. Afghanistan is, it really breaks my heart. So they really struggle to get information, and so going back to your point of in what ways are we helping, is just really by creating information that is easily understood and digested, and with very practical advice. I'm all about practical advice, what you can apply to your everyday life. That is the most important thing, is what you do every day, because that has a cumulative effect, right? So if you're exercising and moving every day, that's going to have a huge effect, positive effect in your life. And so with that specific hormone, I was putting this list of, if you have a dog, that's why people love dogs so much, because it actually releases oxytocin. How amazing is that? And it's the hormone that for women that have babies, that's the bonding hormone. And it's, hugging people, kissing and touch and physical touch, all of those little things every day, like hug yourself, right? That's going to do something for your oxytocin levels. So it's a beautiful hormone and I just find that our bodies are like a miracle, and we have to use those hormones to our advantage.
Absolutely. Our bodies are so amazing. You've raised quite a few points there. I also saw the study with dogs and cats. If you cuddle your dog and cat, it increases your oxytocin.
there you go, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny. This sounds so basic of me, but I had we called it the bachelorette pad. There was 3 of us girls who were all single. I felt like both of them had dogs. And I'm like, y'all have got an advantage here having dogs. Like you get to cuddle them and now it's scientifically proven, which is awesome.
Right.
That access to information piece though, I don't think we're grateful enough for the era that we live in. We can literally, no matter what you're into, you can create a business by just having a laptop, or you can get a free personal trainer from having a laptop. Yes, that one-on-one, you've got the accountability, the motivation. Of course, paying for a service is also that kind of reciprocity.
Reciprocity. Yeah.
There we go. English is probably your second language and you can speak English better than me. This is amazing.
No.
Also, so like when you invest money in something, obviously you're going to work harder at it. But, you know, we have so much access to information to be able to create whatever we want, whether it's more aligned hormones. Like we're living in an environment where we're just so lucky.
Very lucky, very, very lucky. I just as anecdotal, but I attended this incredible concert that a dear friend organized with United Nations Orchestra and women composers from all over the world, right? And there was a beautiful speech about the fact that effectively, we are extremely grateful. There are so many things that we still have to fight for as women. But there are so many different societies that just have no access to college, right? So that's what's happening in Afghanistan, no access to education. And I just think it's so, so needed. And look, we don't charge at all for all the content that we produce. And it's been a huge investment from me personally, and it's an everyday investment in time and effort and research and resources. But we get this beautiful podcast and this awareness back, and people writing to us saying, thank you so much. I didn't know about this. And now I'm doing this thanks to this article and thanks to this newsletter. And so it's really nice to see that. And I don't, whatever contribution we can create for a more positive society, it will be just, I know it's great karma.
Absolutely. And just showing that it just shows how passionate you are about this, from being stage 4 in endometriosis and wanting to educate people and giving all of that value. And I'm sure so many people listening to this will probably want to, understand more about Hormone University. And I think that free education is so important. Something I do want to touch on that I noticed you said with endometriosis, it's an average of like 7 to 10 years before people get a diagnosis. You also mentioned it's something we need to fight for as women, and we need to learn to advocate for ourselves. Can you dive more into, personally as a woman, just as a side note, I've found like advocating for myself has been a journey and it has taken conscious effort. Can you dive more into why we're not advocating for ourselves and how to get started?
Oh gosh, yes. The $1 million question. Absolutely. Look, what we see is that for some reason, I think that we are so empathetic usually, right? Yeah. And we look, I don't have a straightforward answer, and that's the truth, because each person is different. And some people are braver than others, and they would kind of like stand up for themselves. In my case, you know, I grew up in a Mediterranean country, very kind of macho society, right? And you know, you're always being told to behave and not to kind of stir up a situation or create a drama of some sort. And that's honestly BS. I'm not saying you should be unkind or you should say things in a way that are not polite. You can communicate in a way where you're direct, you're kind, but you can ask those questions and you can advocate for yourself. So if a doctor or whoever, right, says to you, well, you know, this is just a heavy period, just, you know, take an ibuprofen. no, wait a minute, I've been dealing with this for this amount of time, and I really do not think that this is normal. And I've read about XYZ. And so can you tell me more about why you think this is normal? And can you tell me more about what things I could be doing that I might not do at the moment? So just, push it back. And that's just, asking questions. I find when you have that knowledge, I find they're very, very powerful.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're using personal evidence, you're using knowledge you've learned, but also asking some pretty open questions. Like, by asking a doctor, can you tell me more about why you've said this? Or that makes them think about why they've said that rather than just kind of, and I am very pro doctors. I'm not like saying anything against them, but as you mentioned, sometimes it is a time thing, and getting them to think a bit more deeply may help them come to a different solution for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. We're coming towards the end now, but I know that you have just so much knowledge in the hormone space. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you really, really wanted to share with the audience today?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I could talk to you for 3 hours, but I do want to say that, look, I'm a very positive person by nature, and I think that there are so many things we can do to help ourselves. I do want to just bring up the subject of endocrine disruptor chemicals, and because that's something that 99% of the population, men and women, are affected by it. And I go back to my initial point of we have a hormonal health crisis, right? So it's not just us women. There is a huge fertility crisis with men. And so what are endocrine disruptors? That's the first question. And those are just chemicals. There is, I don't know if you know about this, for anyone listening to this, there is, I believe, still a huge lawsuit going on with a cream that is a hair straightening cream of some sort that has been linked with ovarian cancer. And so it's absolutely horrible. So all the chemicals that we're being exposed to, from the water we drink to the food we eat, the famous BPA-free cans, right? BPA, that's an endocrine disruptor. If you are, for example, buying some sort of, fast food, put it in the microwave, that plastic is going to release chemicals. So please don't do that. Don't do that. Don't put plastic in the microwave. It's going to give you horrible chemicals that you are going to, digest. And so that specific case that, anyone can search for, is something that, is very scary, right? This is a huge manufacturer of cosmetics that has put the lives of women at risk. And so what I would say to people is that try to avoid any chemicals that are going to interfere with your hormonal health and your endocrine system. So it's a huge subject. Best if you kind of, again, we have quite a few articles on Hormone University that tell you about just the basics of it and go deeper into what kind of things you can do. Again, let's be practical, right? We can't avoid them. It's really, really hard to avoid them, but let's do whatever we can to minimize them. Detergents is another one. Candles is another one. So all these things that we do on a daily basis, we just have to kind of keep an eye on things. So that's a subject that I just wanted to address, because we are actually launching a certification for consumer goods at Hormone University. So we want to tell society this product is endocrine disruptor free. You're okay to use it. So very different from clean beauty, let's say, which is kind of like, in my opinion, a bit of a vague term. So we want to go deeper into it and we want to be specific about it.
I love that specificity as well of like, this is like endocrine disruptor free rather than clean, because it's like, what does clean mean? And I love that you brought up those examples as well. Personally, I know that my diffuser is much better than candles, but I still just love the smell of those like Bath and Body Work candles.
Oh.
So it's like, what is actually in them? Are they endocrine disruptors? Why? And all of that, because I think a lot of women that are trying to do the best they can for their hormones and feel like they have to do everything right just to feel normal don't realize, what these candles are doing, what BPA is doing and all of that. And of course, we don't want to overwhelm people with information, but we still do need to arm people with knowledge over time. Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. Head out to all these articles. It's actually fun to read and it's interesting to read. So highly, highly recommend it. For sure. And they make people feel like not alone as well. I remember like, especially when I went through depression when I was in my early 20s, I felt like I had to do everything right just to feel normal. And it's like, how are these people like eating like crap, not exercising and they feel and look great, but it's like, do they? Or is that just the external kind of thing? Or did they get used to it? And I think there's a lot of people out there in a similar boat, whether it's weight gain or whether it's depression or whatever it is, that don't feel quite normal in some sort of way and just need to realize that we do need to optimize our hormones. Absolutely. We do have a final question on this podcast, and that is, if you were sitting across the table with your 20-year-old self, what one sentence of advice would you give her? Oh gosh, I want to cry. It's so many things. 95% of what we think, of what worry us doesn't happen. And I think that what I would say is a couple of things. One, it's great to be brave and it's okay to be vulnerable. And don't worry so much about so many different things. So, yeah, that's definitely those three things. I love that. It's at the time you don't realize it, but the older you get, the more you realize that the stuff you worried about and thought about just did not need to take up cognitive space. Exactly. And don't worry so much about what people might think. That's the other one. When you start your own company, you go through a lot of self-doubt and you question everything and you're constantly thinking, oh my God, what repercussions is this going to have? And am I going to do a great job as a leader, as the CEO of a company, as a colleague and with my customers, the most important thing. So you know what? Just try it and do your best. Always do your best. You can never regret if you do your best. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And obviously I'm a business owner as well, and I totally empathize with that. It's so hard to focus on the things that are actually going to move the needle in your business, or anyone listening, move the needle in your health, when there's just so many other things that you want to worry about that, may not be as important. Exactly. I am sure, Anna, that so many people want to learn more about your products, learn more about Hormone University. Where can we all find you on social media? Where can we find your products? Thank you, Lori. Yes. So social media is at Hormone University, and our website is Hormone University, all in one word.com. And you will see Shop Wellness, and that's where you're going to find our products, Glow Botanica products, which are for anything that's hormonal imbalance or stress. So that magnesium product that I mentioned. And we also have Tummy Butter, which is a wonderful product with really, really rigorous scientific background, and it will help you achieve hormonal balance. You just have to be consistent and use it daily. Yeah. Consistency is a key in all areas of life. In everything. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us, Anna. It's truly been a pleasure. And yeah, I've certainly learned loads from you today. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to your audience for listening. No worries. And for everyone listening in the car, at home, or wherever you are today, eat well, move well, breathe well. And until next time, keep shining.